For this particular segment, it will be very useful, especially for Jing, because his next speech will be on organization of speech. So hence, listen very carefully to the suggestions and the tips which you may find useful for your next speech. Organization of a speech is same like the structure of a speech. Why is structure so important? It boils down to three main areas. How you start your speech, and that is the opening of a speech, then followed by the body of a speech, and finally your conclusion. Structure of a speech, the outline of a speech. How do we organize our speech? Where I'm concerned, each time when I listen to a speaker, the first 20 seconds or so will be very, very important. So how do we start a speech? There are a couple of techniques. First, we can have a startling statement to startle the audience. Second, you pose a question to the audience. And third, you can have a rhetorical question. Fourth, you can even use a quotation. And fifth, you can have a dramatic effect. I'll give you a couple of examples. What is a startling statement? Ladies and gentlemen, in this room, 1 out of every 3 of us is going to leave this world because of cancer, stroke, heart attack, or heart disease. Isn't that startling? Now, this statistic does not come from me. It comes from the registry of deaths. Whenever a person passes on, a death certificate will be given to the family. And the cause of death, if you are unfortunate, murder, suicide, accident. But for majority of us, if you're lucky, you pass on because of old age. But should we pass on because of cancer, heart attack, heart disease, or stroke? These are the 4 major killers in Singapore. And this is a lifestyle disease, not in those old days. So that is a startling statement. How you can startle the audience. If you turn that statement into a question, ladies and gentlemen, do you know that 1 out of every 3 of us in this room, we are going to pass on because of cancer, stroke, heart attack, or heart disease? The third technique is a rhetorical question. You pose a question to the audience, and obviously the answer is understood. How many of us do not wish to be healthy? Nobody would raise their hand. It's obvious, all of us wish to be healthy. Or how many of us do not want to be successful? Rhetorical question. It's very obvious. Do we want to be healthy? Rhetorical question. So that is the third technique. A fourth technique, which is one of my favorite, would be a quotation. So try to memorize as many as you can. But that quotation has to be appropriate for your speech, for your message. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. As they say, the past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is most important. They say it is a gift because it's the present. But what is more important is what lies within us. Forget the past. The future is very unpredictable in today's context. But what lies within us is more important, up to us. Where are we going on from here? How are we going to move on? Which track are we going to take? And that quote is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can even quote somebody who is still alive. Excellence is not based on perfection, but on learning from mistakes. Our mistakes and other people's mistakes. And we credit that quotation to the founder of the YY Group, Mr. Wong Ying Yen. Excellence is not based on perfection, but on learning from mistakes, yours and mine. The last technique is a very common one. One of the world champion of public speaking, Darren LaCroix, that was about 8 years ago. He started his speech by standing at the center of the stage, and then he fell forward on his two hands, and his nose nearly touched the floor. Ouch! And he looked right at the contest chair, and he stayed there for a couple of seconds. Very dramatic, but that was part of his message. He fell, he had a pain, and that is physical pain. How about spiritual pain, verbal pain? Some years ago, a contestant from Singapore took part in the district contest, and that was at Suntec City. After being introduced, he took something from his back pocket. It was wrapped up, small little piece. He pulled out, and it was an anti-cutter for cutting paper. He held it up, and the stage was quite far from the first row. Ouch! Very dramatic, isn't it? Painful, it hurts. The blade cutting his finger. But his speech was, words can hurt as well. But when words hurt, the scar remains there. But this scar can be healed. And after his speech, I gave him feedback because he was from NTU Alumni, the club which I started. And I told him it would have been more dramatic if you had hidden a small pouch with a red liquid, and as you cut, you squeeze it. And the audience may think it is really blood. But obviously, he took out the blade from the anti-cutter. So that was a very dramatic start. So these are some of the techniques in the introduction of your speech. For some, you can start with a story. And then we come to the body of the speech. To me, the body of the speech is also very important. For those who know me, for those who have heard my speeches, especially contest speeches, the feedback I receive, they say, I find your speech very easy to follow. Why? Because it is very structured, systematic, sequential. I go step by step. Same like my recent contest speech. First, I talk about my uncle. And then I talk about myself. And then I talk about a colleague, a school teacher. 3 stories. Very structured, systematic, sequential. The 3 S's. Then we go to the conclusion. The closing is just as important. So for the closing, you can also use back the same techniques. A startling statement, a question, a rhetorical question, a quotation, or even another dramatic act. Or you can even summarize the points of your message, your speech. Or, as what I mentioned earlier, it can be a call for action, making an appeal, and close memorably, strongly with a message. Just one more point for the introduction. Why do you think it is so important for the introduction? My 3 A's. Your purpose is to attract, arouse, and attract the attention of the audience. in wanting to listen to you more. Why should I listen to the speaker? Because he wants to capture and captivate your attention into wanting to listen to you more. Ponder and reflect over the past. How many speakers have you heard? Whether in Toastmaster or elsewhere. How did the speaker start? Was it something very boring? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is so and so. Very boring, very flat. You go straight into your speech. Unnecessary greeting. Precious seconds are being lost. Go straight into your speech. Attract their attention. And obviously, after you have been introduced, pause for a couple of seconds. Look around. Make sure they are listening to you, they are looking at you. You want their attention, and then you start. Of course, there are some speakers, once their name have been introduced, they straight away go into the speech. Some in the audience may not be ready. But when you create the dramatic, or what they call a pregnant pause, everybody will be hushed. They'll be waiting for the speaker to start because you want their attention. So basically, that is how we structure a speech so that your speech will be very organized and the outline is very, very clear. Over to you, Toastmaster.